Hey guys, today I'm going to be going over 5 specific tactics that you can use so you can be an absolute weapon on the doubles court. So stay tuned. Okay, tactic number 1 is following the ball. And a big mistake that I see with amateur players when I go play in, fun rec games, I'm willing to play with anybody, right? Or just when I'm watching, is I'll see players like looking at each other and they're asking, whose ball was that? Or like, hey, bro, that was your ball because it's your forehand. In tennis, a lot of the time, it's the forehand, because majority of players' forehands are better than their backhand. So then it's just like any middle ball is the forehand. In pickleball, it's different since you're so close to each other. You're both hugging the non-volley zone line all the time, that it can't always be the person's forehand just because the ball is in the middle, because you're all so close up to each other. So what I want to teach you guys about is following the ball in order to close any gaps so that your opponents can't speed up to these gaps or cause confusion between you and your partner where you're both like, whose ball was that? Because if there's confusion on the court, that's never good, and it's never going to end in a good result. So I'm going to give you guys 2 analogies or 2 scenarios, and starting with the first scenario that will hopefully be able to help you guys better understand what it means to follow the ball and close those gaps so that there's no more confusion, so that you know who's hitting what shot in what scenario. So first scenario, there's only 2 scenarios to go over ever because there's 2 players on the court, right? First scenario, you're on the odd side of the court. You're dinking cross court, odd side to odd side, okay? And let's just say it's me, for instance. I'm dinking cross court. I got my partner, Bill, over here. He is obviously on the even side. So I'm dinking cross court, odd side to odd side. His job is to cover the line and anything at his body. My job is to cover any dink out wide plus the middle. So what it means to follow the ball is to act like a string is connected to me and Bill. And wherever that ball goes, we are just going to shade over that way or shift over that way. So if I dink cross court, Bill's now covering the line. I have now shifted to the center line. I'm still on my side of the court, but I'm near the center line. And the reason that you want to do that is so that I can cover that gap in the middle, because any middle ball is mine. So then second scenario, let's say that I hit my next dink up the line. It is now Bill's job to cover the middle. So he's going to cover the middle with his nasty backhand, right? And anything that they speed up the middle, he's covering. If they dink cross court, he goes out wide and dinks back cross court or up the middle, whatever he wants to do. So he has those 2 things to cover now that the ball is on his side of the court. So the easiest way to remember it with these 2 scenarios is whenever you hit the ball to your same side of the court, meaning if I'm on the odd side and I hit to the odd side, my job is to cover the middle ball. If I'm on the odd side and I hit to the even side, my job is to cover my body and the line. So simple as that. It's something that's very, very overlooked. And honestly, if I had to pick one thing that frustrates me the most when I'm playing rec play with lower level players, that would be it. It's just the confusion with whose ball is whose. So just remember that principle. If you're dinking cross court, right? If you're dinking to your side of the court, so odd to odd, you're covering the middle. If you're on the even side and you're dinking even to even, you're covering the middle. If you're on the odd side and dinking to the even side, you're covering the line / your body. If you're on the even side and you're dinking to the odd side, you're covering the line / your body. Okay, that brings us to our second doubles tactic. It's an extremely important point, and it's one that's very, very overlooked in amateur play. and even some advanced play where people just don't know where to go in certain situations. And this specific situation is the lob. So if your partner, let's say that you guys are both on the kitchen line and your partner lobs a ball, both of you then need to transition at least to mid-court. So you're going backpedaling. You're not turning around and running. You're backpedaling so that you're always facing the competition. Very, very important thing. But you're backpedaling to at least mid-court so that you're ready for that next shot. And then let's say at that point, you've noticed that the ball is now behind your opponent. So meaning they can't hit an overhead out of the air. They're going to let that ball bounce. Both of you then go forward. Notice how it's not one of you goes back and one of you stays up, which is the main thing that happens. Okay, I'll go back because I have it in my mind. I have the double strategy down where if they hit an overhead on this ball, I don't want to be standing at the kitchen and get a ball to the face. But it's something that people just don't understand because they haven't had that background. But both players are going to come back until they see that ball is behind them. Sometimes it never makes it behind them, but if it does, then both players come to the kitchen and you're ready for that next shot to come over. That keeps your lob offensive, and that makes it possible for you in case your partner, let's say that they're the ones that lobbed it, in case your partner leaves that ball a little low for them to overhead, you guys can still stay in the point because you've both come back. It's kind of a funny thing. Like, you don't really think about it until you understand the tactic, but it makes no sense to just stand up there and try to take an overhead to the face, right? So we're transitioning together when that lob goes up. Okay, tactic number 3 is hitting neutral balls to the player that's back and hitting high balls to the player that is short. So a lot of the time, if you're playing in a match, and we've all experienced it, where we're trying to keep our opponents back, but one opponent has already made it in, the other one is still in transition. And so we get ahead of ourselves and we hit a neutral ball, meaning that it's like waist high, maybe a little bit higher. We hit it at that player that's short, and all of a sudden it comes back as a rocket, and we have zero time to react. So any neutral ball, we want to hit it to that opponent that is deep. And if you're playing against players where they're recognizing that you're doing this every time and they start poaching, maybe they'll get a couple of points poaching, right? Where they're coming across the court and taking that ball out of the air. Then it's your opportunity the next time to go down the line where that player is that's short. But for the most part, whenever you get a neutral ball, you want to keep it to the player that is back until you get a high ball. Then you can place it at the feet of the opponent that's short in the court, / if there's any opening, you want to place it there. So very, very simple tip, but make sure that if the ball is high, you're hitting it to the player that's short in the court. If the ball is neutral or low, you're trying to keep it to the player that is deep. Last thing that I'll say about this is if a ball is low and one player is already up at the net, one of the opponents is already up at the net, and they've hit a low dink, they're starting to transition in, you have to dink that ball and try to keep it in the kitchen. You can't try to keep that to the deep person because it's so easy to poach for the player that's already short because you have to hit up on that ball because it's so low in the court. So if you get a ball that's low like that, accept defeat in the beginning of that point, right? So I don't mean accept defeat in the entire point, but your opponents have made it into the net. So you have to accept that, even though one opponent isn't quite there yet, and just dink and get ready to set up yourself through dinking to be able to get a more offensive shot. So it's accepting defeat in the sense of I am allowing my opponents to come in, they've made it, and I feel like that's a really hard thing for us to get over, where we're just like, oh, I want to keep them back, and it just causes us to make errors where we're either popping the ball slightly high and they poach it, or we're hitting it a little bit too hard and it's hitting into the net, or it's going wide, right? We're trying to create something that's not there. So sometimes you just have to be like, okay, they've made it in. That's totally fine. I'm going to set myself up a new way, stay in this point, start playing chess and not checkers. Okay, tip number 4 for doubles tactics is getting to the net with your partner. So whenever you guys are disconnected, it's never good because whoever's at the net is in trouble with any ball that comes to the player that's in the back, because they could hit that ball slightly high like I was talking about before. Points automatically over if they hit you with the ball or hit the ball anywhere in your direction, just because you won't have enough time to react on a high ball. So you want to get to the net together, okay, as best as you can, and be at the net together. And the reason for this is because your guys' angles, the angles of the court are a lot greater when you're up at the net as compared to back on the baseline. People that come from a tennis background or even a racquetball background will automatically assume that they can just out-bang their opponents, right? They can just drive, stay on the baseline and be totally fine. But what they don't realize is it's a major disadvantage to be there, because the closer that you get to the net, the more angles, the more ability that you have to be able to hit the ball in multiple locations. So you have a ton more angle to work with the closer that you get to the net. You also have a ton more angle to work with the higher that your opponent hits the ball. So you can hit your overheads way out wide, obviously up the middle, or way out wide the other way. When you're closer to the net, as compared to if you're back on the baseline and they hit a slightly high shot, your angles on the court are a lot more narrow. So the best way that I like to think about it is just my hands. If I'm back on the baseline, this is my angle. As I get into the kitchen, my angles open up majorly. So that's the first point of getting to the net with your partner. The second is your ability to attack is much greater. When you're close up at the net, you can attack your opponents a lot easier because you're so much closer to them. Let's say that they're bangers and they're staying back. Your ability to be able to drop shot, you could drop shot and bring them forward and then attack that next shot. You have so many more options, especially if you're playing against bangers that are staying back, if you're up on the net. The last point with that is you can cause more mistakes from your opponent because you're applying more pressure, okay? You're not applying any pressure from the baseline because they have a lot more time to react to the balls that you're sending them. But if you're up on the net and you're reaching in, right, taking balls out of the air, moving your opponents around with the extra angles, you're going to cause a lot more mistakes. You're going to cause them to feel a lot more pressure, hopefully pop up the ball and allow you to be able to put it away. Okay, the last doubles tactic that I want to talk about with you guys is poaching. And some of you probably know what poaching is, some of you don't. For those of you that don't, poaching is where you go onto your partner's side of the court to hopefully put the ball away or set up the next shot for a put away. And what it does is it catches your opponents off guard because they're thinking that they're hitting to the player that is back, right? And you're coming into the court. And so all of a sudden the ball comes back a lot faster and they're just not ready for it. So there's two ways to poach. You can either not poach or poach, I guess. One is a fake poach. So you're going to stutter step, which is essentially a split step where you're hopping after the split step. Okay, this is going to allow you to be able to react quicker than just a standard split step, because a split step, you are stopping yourself as you split your feet apart. With a stutter step, you're stopping yourself enough that you don't fall into the kitchen, but you're also still moving and keeping in movement so that you can react quicker. So it's just, it's like a little shuffle almost, a stutter step. And this is something that you'll see all the pros do, especially James Ignatowicz. His is to an extreme extent. You'll see Ben Johns do this to a not so extreme extent, but they'll stutter step before they poach. Okay, so we stutter step, and then the timing of the poach is right as our opponent is about to make contact with the ball, we full send and we go, and then we're going to hit outward and downward over the ball, creating a windshield wiper motion if it's a forehand, same if it's a backhand. And we're essentially hitting that ball back faster than they ever thought that it would come back, because they're thinking that they're hitting to our opponent who is slightly back in the court. Second way to poach is to fake a poach. Okay, so we're going to stutter step. We're going to leave slightly early. And by slightly early, so a normal one is right before our opponents are about to make contact with the ball. We're going to go as they begin their swing. Okay, so right as they begin their swing, we go big step to the right or to the left, and then we recover back. That next ball we just need to be ready for, because they're probably going to come down the line because we showed that we were going to poach. So poach is a super effective tactic to use. If you guys go watch, a really good video to watch is Jack Sock, Annalie Waters versus Elise Jones and Riley Newman. And I think it's the North Carolina finals. But if you just look up Jack Sock, Annalie Waters, it'll pop right up. Go watch that match and watch how Jack Sock poaches. Look at his timing of his poaches. You'll see that he fakes a lot, but he reels off so many points during that match from just poaching. All right, that wraps up everything for this video. I hope that this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions or want to learn about anything in the future, leave it in the comments below. Just ask the question, and then hopefully I'll be able to do a video of that. If you're not already subscribed, be sure to subscribe. I upload a video like this every single week, and I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you on the next one.